Welcome to the Familyguide podcast presented by Movieguide. I'm Robbie Bear here with my good friend Jeremy Carroll. We are talking about topics from Elon Musk to lawnmower parenting and the feminization of culture. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this. You know, my wife is getting her PhD in education, and it's really interesting being, like a homeschool conservative mom in that sphere.
Yeah.
And so, they were, just even in our own county, the kind of education board was talking about making it so that kids could only get one day off for Christmas and then no other time. And it came from this thought of like, hey, there's a lot of kids and families, like kids who do not have structure around them. Mm-hmm. And so like when they're going to be there for a week or 2 weeks, their parents aren't there, they're working, they don't have any of the support around them that kind of fills their day with things to do. But when I heard this, I mean, my wife had the same opinion, but like, it just feels like it's kind of a wrong turn of society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's this idea that we don't want to give people freedom anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of comes down to this idea. Okay, this is where it gets controversial. Controversial warning. Is kind of like, societies have ebbed and flowed. Like some societies have been deeply more masculine, like some societies like more feminine. It's kind of ebbs and flows. And it feels like in a moment that it's kind of like the feminization of society is, kind of the trait of not every mom, but like in general, the trait of motherhood is nurturing. And it's that thought of like, hey, you have to take care of every moment and you have to look over it and all this sort of stuff. It's like it's like you read a lot of the parenting blogs or whatever, like the whole thing of like, it's not helicopter parenting anymore. It's lawnmower parenting. It's making sure that you clear out everything in the way of your child that could hurt them or hinder them or stop the so play dates, like the moms are running around, like doing stuff and like being right there next to their kid the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to like in our time or like previous times where like in our time where like my parents just dropped us off or whatever, or like they rolled down the windows in the car and they just went in and bought stuff and came out. Yep. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, like it's like, oh, everything. Yeah. And the thing that I think is interesting in that is like you actually like, it does feel like society's moved too far in kind of one direction at this moment. Do you know what I mean? And like these things ebb and flow, that like they're missing out on, like God created both man and woman.
Shocker.
Like God created the father and the mother,
right?
And like the father's, like he plays an important role in the children's life, just like the mother's nurturing plays a role. Like the father's like, hey, why don't you, like when the kid comes and says, hey, I want to try to see if I can strap wings to this chair and roll down the thing. Like he says, try it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or like, it's kind of pushing to do, those crazy things.
Crazy adventures. Yeah.
The crazy adventures and stuff. And like, that's important too. Yeah. There's a really funny scene about what to expect when expecting or whatever, where they're like all talking about like the things that happen to their kids or whatever, which is the negative things. But it's just like, you need the freedom to be able to try stuff. And I feel like when society cracks down, because like, yes, it is true that for a lot of kids, like they will not have anything to do in that moment. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that like, one of the things we know is that you don't need every element of your life structured. Like a lot of times the in-between times are when you come up with the greatest ideas. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, Thomas Edison did not have a great structure. Yeah. That is why he almost blew up a train in like third grade or something like that. Like, but like you needed Thomas Edison to be running around, even doing stupid chemical things in a train in order for him to be the greatest inventor of the last 1,000 years, inventing 1,000 different products, the film camera, the light bulb, like the Wright brothers, like their father was traveling all the time. Their mother had died. You know what I mean? Like, they needed to be able to have that time where they did stupid things like jump off the deck,
Right?
Or like
Finding problems,
or
to
like
solve
one of I think Wilbur lost both of his front teeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like doing something stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you needed those kind of elements of being willing to do that stupid, the masculine idea of like just let him go. You know what I mean? And I think that is kind of, you can see that from a policy standpoint all the way down to like a parenting standpoint. The helicopter, not the helicopter parent anymore, the lawnmower parent.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To
Totally.
like the policy of like, hey, we need kids in school all summer. We need kids in school all Christmas break. You know what I mean? Like they just get Christmas off because otherwise they're not going to have, but it's like you need the kid to try to hustle. The problem is like, and this is one of my things is like centralized government, it's very hard for it to work. It's extremely hard for command and control governments to pick winners and pick losers. Do you know what I mean? That's why socialism doesn't work. That's why communism doesn't work.
Right.
Like it's very hard to pick winners and losers. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because like the thing that you think would be the winner, the kid who went to Harvard or Yale or whatever, that's not what society proves out to be true. It proves out to be Edison, who got kicked out of third grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It proves out
All
to
his
be
dropouts
like
and all these guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The Wright brothers. It proves out to be like Rockefeller. His dad left him. Do you know what I mean? Like his dad ended up like being having another family and like walked in on his mom or whatever and was like, "Hey, look, like I want you guys to be a polygamist." And she's like, "No, he just left her." And like they had to struggle to survive.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these things that like kind of transform and like the craziness of society are the things that like nobody would have ever picked.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like you would have never bet on those people, but like you need the mess in order to be able to find the beauty.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you need that. And I feel like even like as we move into a world where maybe like it's not necessarily command and control, but maybe it's like technology that like tells us what to do and how to do it. I mean, there's a real possibility of like, oh, people listen to AI to whatever.
Yeah.
It's like they're not good at like picking the outlier.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
And it's like the outlier is the thing that moves the world forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's there was a great book on that or whatever, but like it's like you don't like for Malcolm Gladwell, but like you don't you can't predict the outlier. Do you know what I mean? But you have to be okay with like I mean, look at what is that incredible book that movie that October Sky. Do you know what I mean? Like no algorithm would have picked that. No government would have picked that.
Totally.
I mean, the government literally did not invest in the Wright brothers. Right? They invested in some wealthy dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who had no shot at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
nowhere.
And it's like you can look at the history of. I have this awesome book with my kids of inventors, and it goes through like all these different inventors who have invented like incredible things, from Alexander Graham Bell to just all these things throughout. And it's like you literally would not have picked any of those people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like any of those people would not have been the people that you would have kind of like bet on.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that like my son, I feel like as a dad, I feel like he's the smartest dude in the world. I feel like he's awesome. But yeah, like he does some stupid things. Like he jumped off the deck the other day. I mean, I didn't want him to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's not a high deck, so he was fine. But like the thing is that like he was trying to see if he could fly with wings he had made, okay, which we had to explain to him that's not possible. You know what I mean? And he wasn't hurt or anything.
Don't tell him what's impossible. No, I was just kidding.
But the thing is that like you need the ability to be able to try, to like explore, to like, and I think we talked about before, like my son had come up with this idea of like he wanted to teach a geology class. He loved reading this book on geology. And so like he knocked on all the doors in the neighborhood, like asking if they wanted to come over for a geology class. Because he wrote them a note and put it in their mailbox, but he realized he forgot to tell him the time. So he knocked on the
So
doors.
cute.
But the thing is that we got like these Ring camera pictures from like other parents or like other people who are like,
Flipping
oh
out
my
about
gosh, your kid is going door to, and it was like,
He's talking to neighbors.
he's going door to door. And it's just like,
He's meeting his neighbors.
what an age that we live in. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I mean,
it's
my
nuts.
parents, I think, were absolutely incredible parents.
Yeah.
But like, we literally went door to door and we sold like those candies or
Yeah.
whatever, you know,
Yeah.
and like, you know, to be able to try to win a
Totally.
Nintendo,
Yeah.
you know, which we didn't win because you had to sell so many things. But like, you were just free. Like, you hung out with like the
Yeah.
kids and you just rode a bike and you just did stuff. And it's just like, I just think that like, it seems like the pendulum has swung
Totally.
so far in one way that it's
Yeah.
like society, and it's like an outcropping of that is like you look at like kind of the Gilded Age. I mean, those men, like, they did incredible things. Do you know what I mean? Like, they literally moved society forward that we are able to live in the luxury that we live today.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's called the Gilded Age. It just like was absolutely transformative for society as a whole. Now, the thing is that like they had to do some bad things, and not everything we would necessarily agree with.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not encouraging bad things. I want people to be moral. But like, yes, people were working like 14 hours in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was better than like being a subsistence farmer where you're like starving and like trying to figure it out. There's an amazing documentary called The Call of the Entrepreneur done by the Acton Institute. And it goes through like a similar movement that happened in China with like the growth of factories and stuff. And I recommend it highly. It's like a very interesting documentary about kind of like how, yes, it was a hard thing, but it was a transformative thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, we have to be okay with hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel like, in a way, like society wants to
Right.
kind of like put
and-
pads on everything.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you look at like Elon Musk, for example, like, yes, do we live in an age now where like you know what the dude is thinking at all times? Like, probably if we would have heard what Carnegie was thinking at all times, we probably would have hated it.
Yeah. Twitter
You
had
know
been
what I mean?
around
Like,
back
even
in
though
the
he
day.
invented like steel or something. But
Yeah.
like, so yes, maybe it's so much information, which is a problem. But the thing is that in general, like he is moving the world forward in like incredible ways.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? From
Yeah.
like, I mean, there's not a lot of other people who are like literally inventing a system that can connect someone's eyes that do not work to their brain so that they can see again.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or someone who can't walk to be able to walk. You know what I mean? Like, that is insane. You know what I mean? And so like, those are incredible things. And it's just like, we live in an age where like, and he's not even as tough as like the, like, you know, the Gilded Age guys, like the Rockefellers
Yeah.
of the world. Those guys were really, really tough.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, he says some like mean tweets and people get like really mad about
Right.
him. But like, he's actually like, in general, like, I mean, moving the world forward. And it's just, what a weird age that we live in, that it's like, it is kind of pendulum has swung where we have to live in a padded room wearing pads.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
it's like we're not okay with hard things, you know? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that is like,
I think it's a snowball effect because you get comfortable, and then if it's uncomfortable, we got to get rid of that, make it even more comfortable. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I feel like we've come to this, like, with COVID and everything, it just pushed everything over the edge of like, protect from everything, don't do anything dangerous, nothing, don't, go outside the box kind of thing, which is insanity, because when you go outside the box, that's when you learn the problems that need to be solved.
yeah,
And so I feel like that entrepreneurial spirit and everything kind of needs to be revitalized a lot in society, and people need to be trying new things, going outside the box, thinking of new things and trying stuff, and not just sticking to the status quo or feeling like they're stepping on people's toes and stuff.
well, that was the thing that made the greatness of America, was like the frontier spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
Was like the willingness to do and try crazy things that were hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and just figure it out. Like, not be told what to do, where to do, how to go. Like,
Yeah.
have to be in this system for, like, it was the frontier spirit. Is like, what allowed us to be different than every other
Yep.
area of the world. And it's like, I always think that like, if you act like a computer, like of course a robot's going to steal your job. You know what I mean?
That's a good
Like
point,
if you
yeah.
have to be told what to do,
Yeah.
where to do it, how to do it, like
No
when
different
to,
than a robot.
like, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Like, but the thing is that like the frontier spirit is like, oh my gosh, you're always inventing, creating, coming up with new things, like being willing to try weird, crazy stuff or whatever in the mix. And I think
Totally.
that is, I think it's like just a sad moment in time that it's like, we're not willing to do, like, society as a whole is uncomfortable with hard things. And I think that one thing, I heard this really interesting speech, and it was about how Jesus wasn't nice. And I thought it was like really interesting about this fact that like we've kind of, and we've talked about this before, like years ago, but like where even in the church, like we've kind of made it so that like Jesus has like a Swedish man bun. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yep.
and
Totally.
it's like, trying not to
super meek.
offend anybody and all
Oh,
these
yeah.
things. But like, if you think about it, like
He's
he
radical.
actually didn't mind offending anybody.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
People
the
tried
thing
to
is that
kill
like,
him multiple times. and
right.
He would just
he
have to slip out
literally
of
called
town.
people like whitewashed tombs and snakes.
Brood of vipers.
You know what I mean? Like he turned
Yeah.
over tables and stuff. And so it was an interesting thing that like he was loving and he was true, but he wasn't nice. You know? And I just read The Horse and His Boy. It's in the Narnia series with my kids.
Love that one.
And it's like, again, like they say again about Aslan. He is like, he's loving and he's truthful, but he's not nice.
Nice, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, he's terrifying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that like you need both elements in society.
Yeah.
You need the nurturing. In general, that's been the mom, like kind of the nurturing, like
Yeah,
you've seen it as like the
absolutely.
female characteristic of like the nurturer, but you also need like the person who like pushes you through, who
Tough truth.
who like
Yeah.
encourages hard things. Like, and I think that like everything has bad possibilities,
Right.
but like we as society, like we can't, I just feel like it's
Yeah.
dangerous if you like try to account for like every single, like prevent every bad thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we don't want to stop using electricity because a kid might stick their finger in the socket.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like teach the kid not to stick their finger in the socket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like let them learn how to build their own light out of a potato.
It's important to let kids do dangerous things carefully. You know,
Yeah.
like, bomb run your bike down the hill, but maybe wear a helmet.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. But I just think, I don't know.
Our parents would say we didn't even have helmets.
I know, but the truth is, it's probably smart to wear a helmet. And I think that like you can go extreme on any side.
Right. Totally.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
you can go extreme on like on one side of like, and you could go
Yeah.
extreme on the other. And
Yeah.
I think that that's
Right now
kinda-
we're on the extreme of safety at all costs. Kind of thing.
safety at all costs. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, people breaking into people's cars just to get their dog out of a car when the person walked in to go get a sandwich is kind of getting
that's insane. I haven't even
Loopy.
heard of that.
somebody. I think they were literally just going into like a sandwich shop.
Yeah.
They left their dog in the car, and it's like 75-degree day, whatever. It does get hot in cars,
Yeah.
right? That's important to know.
Yeah.
Like crack a window.
Right.
But then people were like bashing the windows in and stuff like
What?
that. Like it gets like people go berserk over this stuff now.
It's what a weird age.
Well, it's ironic because what's safer?
Yeah.
Let's go smash windows and
Yeah.
like get. It's like crazy. I don't know. I feel like you go too far, and then the remedy is worse than like what the outcome would have been if
Right.
you just let it be. But
And I think that like you have to be okay with people being able to do stupid stuff.
yeah,
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that that's a very hard thing to
part of
swallow.
freedom.
And I
Yeah.
think that that is typically like every sitcom like makes fun of the fact that like the father just let the kid do something that was dumb.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And the mom would have said you can never do it, but like you have to be okay with like it's okay sometimes to do that kind of stuff because you learn that way.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you learn through the process, like how to be able to build the light bulb? How to be able to
gotta throw the chick out of the nest to fly,
Yeah, like you have to learn, like it's important to like this process, you know what I mean? And so it'll be interesting to see like what will happen generationally.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do feel like a big factor with this too is the government stepping in instead of the church to do a lot of the stuff. Instead of having like a close-knit Christian community, now the government feels like, oh, we need to keep them all in school, or we need these programs. But it's like you're not nurturing their soul. You're just keeping them corralled for daycare, and they're putting movies on.
I think that is a great point. Is the thought of that, like, you're right, that the church was like such a fundamental element. Like we love these books, the Horatio Alger books, and they're like an old school book from around the time of the Gilded Age, and they're all about people who like, it's basically like really inspiring stories about like a kid who came from like nothing to becoming successful. Yeah. Like it's basically the story over and over again. But one of the things that's interesting in every one of those, like, or like not every one because I haven't read them all, but a lot of the ones I've read is that that the kid is usually like comes from extreme poor circumstances. Okay, maybe they lost their parents, maybe whatever. Okay, they have almost nothing, and they have to figure out how to make it in the world. Even as they're working to make it, it's just assumed that they will always look after, like that they. So like it's not like a special point of the book that they go out of their way. It's just like part of the fabric of the culture that like, oh yes, like as part of a Christian, like you're gonna go give food to the old lady. Yeah, you know what I mean? Who can't do it. It wasn't like. It was just part of the culture.
Post about that on Instagram and
it wasn't like they didn't assume, like they just assumed as part of the culture, like oh of course, like they would look after the old man or old lady and like bring them food or whatever, or like they would take care of this family that didn't have anything or whatever, and it was just like part of the culture. You're right that it is interesting that now like we've offloaded a lot of that, and another thing that's interesting that you say on that about faith is, and I guess again it's like the hard things, because like the fundamental thing about faith, like the Christian faith, is like at the end of the day, like when we meet our Savior or whatever on Judgment Day, like it is about my life before God. Do you know what I mean? It's not that like, oh, I voted for like the government to take care of this thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, I supported this politician or that politician. Yeah. Like it's fundamentally like, hey, like what does Jesus say? Like, did you take care of the widows? Did you care about the orphans? Like, what did you personally do? Do you know what I mean? And it's like a very personal faith. I mean, that makes it so that like the ethic of how you care about the people around you, how you care. And it's not like we're all broken, so we make mistakes along the way. I make plenty of mistakes too, but it's interesting because like the thing I got in a debate once on one of these like policy things, and it was like the thought of like just kind of like outsourcing that to somebody else. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, the government will handle it. Do you know what I mean? And we can get angry if they're not doing it, but it's like within the Christian faith, it's like, hey, no, it's up to me to handle it. Do you know what I mean? Like if I see the person and they can't afford like whatever that I know, like something, then it's like, oh, well, can I help them with it? You know what I mean? And it's like a personal faith. And I think that is a really interesting part. I remember for our church that like this was years and years ago. Now the homeless issue in LA is so bad, but they were saying like, hey, like stop trying to give money or do these things. Like we need time. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like that thing of like, you just need time working and trying to like bring this homeless people in and like helping them. And like, you know, it's like, and like, again, that's like a hard thing. Do you know what I mean? It's a hard thing of hard things. Do you know what I mean? It's an ugly, like thing. Messy, hard thing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
But about the thing like that's needed, you know,
of like being willing to like just, hey, they need time. You know what I mean, or whatever. And I feel like people are called to all sorts of different things, and you can help in a million different ways. You know, you can help your neighbor who's hurting or anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be like homeless ministry or something. But like the thing is that you can, even being a parent is part of ministry to be able to take care of your kids and like train them up in the way they should go.
Just don't be outsourcing. Don't outsource.
Yeah, don't outsource it, but also just like, it just that need of like not padding the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like a mixture. I feel like those kind of go hand in hand of like, you outsource hard things. Do you know what I mean? And you pad the world.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you got to rip the pads off. Like, it's important for people to be able to, like, that's what's made great people do great things in the past. You know what I mean? Like, you need that. You need the father and the mother in there. You know what I mean? Which is a hard mix in there, you know?
The grace and law.
Yeah, right? You do. You need both. Truth and love, you know?
Well, that was that movie, Tree of Life, from, what's his name? It was really, really super artsy.
Malick.
Yeah. But it's all about the dad being the harsh law and then the mom being grace. He's giving grace to the kids. So they had that balance or whatever. That was
that's fascinating.
That was kind of the whole thing because my friend did a whole paper on it. But it was supposed to be like, he even shows how creation and everything was like, they have the laws and then like, but it needs grace to survive kind of thing. Right. That was interesting. Right. I don't know. It's an interesting take. Yeah.
Because that's another way of saying it. Like I was saying nurturing and kind of like that, but like you're right. It's kind of like grace and law. And if you lead too much on the grace, but in a way, I don't mean like, I mean, I guess a father is kind of the law, but I also mean like, I also mean freedom. Yeah. Is what I mean in there. Because I just do mean like there's nurturing and freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where there's like, you can over
Well, that's what I was thinking with that movie. I just thought I was like, it's a little bit
I think it's good. I would put that, I'd keep that in there. It's interesting. But I just think that grace, I just think
they go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And we need to both. Like,
yeah.
It's okay. Like, it is okay to stomach hard things. Do you know what I mean? And we don't have to always be afraid of those.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like,
fear not.
Right. And I don't think that
fear not, because you can outsource it to someone else and you can have a nice life.
We do live in an outsourced world, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean, you can see like how much, like I do think that part of the consternation around Elon Musk is that they get mad at him because he just speaks his mind at all times. And that's just the nature of our current age, which we hear too much from everybody all the time.
Who doesn't do that? It's an online celebrity.
It's like every celebrity is saying a lot. But I do think also like there's kind of a vitriol to like, hey, he's willing to push and do hard things. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's how you move the world forward. Like, don't you want to like, we need people who want to cure
and that's a dude blindness it's a dude with a tough paralysis, tough background again.
Yeah, exactly. Or like we need people who want to be able to do these crazy things. You know what I mean? I don't know. End scene.
It's like making these podcasts.
Yeah. It's really hard sitting in this chair, making this podcast. Because like one thing that we always teach at Movie Guide is the fundamental importance of, we don't believe in like removing all access to content.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because there are some people who are like, hey, we don't want any content ever at all. But like we kind of feel like, hey, you do that, and the moment your kid sees something amazing, like content wise, then they get addicted, and then they just kind of go in the wrong direction.
Right.
But it's like, hey, you give them access to content. Obviously, you protect them. They don't control something that's like age appropriate. But like, you teach them how to analyze it, how to understand it, how to be wise in it. Do you know what I mean? Because like wisdom comes from experience and time, you know? And it's like being willing to like kind of letting them see like, hey, look, this movie, like how does this movie reflect Christ? Do you know what I mean? But like kind of walking through it with them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, I think that is kind of a good element of it. It's like you're not padding it so that they don't get to see anything ever.
Right. Totally.
But you're letting them see stuff, but teaching them, hey, this is how you view it. This is how you can see it.
Yeah.
And you can get those resources at movieguide.org.
That's right. That's true.
Or we have a book. We did a new version of the MediaWise family. It's available on Amazon that you can get. It's an updated version of the Culturewise family and the MediaWise family. We've done many books. I think there are 34. But you can get that right now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Family Guide podcast presented by Movie Guide. Be sure to like and subscribe to follow for more of these podcasts. And comment below if you have any suggestions for things we need to talk about and if you have thoughts on today's episode. So we'll see you next time. We are supported by listeners like you.